Stand by for broadcast.
You're listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hello, I'm Squadron Leader Peter Lisney, and in this episode, we take a look at the RAF's last remaining air show. We'll also reheat a few stories, just in case you missed them. But first, see if you can identify this noise. Find out if you're right at the end of this episode. Now, air shows are back, and later we'll hear an RAF photographer's top 10 tips for capturing the perfect air show photograph. However, first we visit RAF Cosford as they prepare to put on the RAF's last remaining air show.
They're the people I see have the most pride that they have this on their doorstep, that they have this long-standing connection with the Royal Air Force. It's their base. And isn't it really cool that their base is the last base that puts on an air show?
We've got a couple of aircraft which we are confirming at the moment, not quite 100% sure yet.
Can't say anything, just
shh.
It is really, really unique. It really is in a world of its own, and long may it remain. Hi, I'm Squadron Leader Chris Wilson. I'm the Media and Communications Officer at RAF Cosford, but I'm also the Media and Communications Officer for the Cosford Air Show as well.
Hi, I'm Squadron Leader Tony Leather. In my day job, I am a training officer. For my airshow job, I am the Director of Operations.
Hi, I'm Martin Turner. I'm the Air Operations Manager in the Airshow office. Ex-military, but now a civilian. And my main role is to basically organise the flying display assets along with the statics.
Gentlemen, thank you for appearing on Inside Air. We're a number of weeks away from the big day. So I know from my experience, I served at Cosford 20 plus years ago as a very junior officer and was roped into airshow organisation and what came after it as well, the charitable distribution of funds and so forth. So I know what it's like to be part of the team. But how is it going for you so far?
Yes, so far so good actually this year. Obviously, I think everybody's had a rough couple of years with COVID and everything, and the announcement for the air show this year came a little bit, that we were going to put it on, came a little bit later than we would normally have liked. So we are doing things in about a 4 or 5 month period that we normally would have done over 9 months. But despite all that, everybody's working very hard to make this year's air show, very safe and very successful.
Okay, and we've got an incredible lineup that we're expecting. Tell us about the lineup.
Yeah, okay, so it was quite a late decision to go ahead this year. So we're very much compressed in the planning, but in the background, Air Events was covering our six basically, speaking to the international team. So we got a couple of announcements almost immediately that the decision was made to go ahead this year, and that included the Hungarian Air Force Gripen, the Belgian F-16 and Augusta 109. And the French Air Force coming with the Rafale as well. So that was a great start. We've got a full house with from Bill and the RAF displays. So everyone wants to see the red arrows, of course. So that's always a big announcement. The Typhoon this year is hoping to do almost a joint display with BBMF, which will be very nice to see, and we will be the first air show to see that if it's PDA'd. That's a Public Display Authority. We've got the RAF Falcons parachute team and the Tutor display as well.
The Royal Air Force has got a very strong history of running air shows and families' days. How did this all start? Where did it all come from?
I think if we talk about the wider Air Force, you're right. There's a tradition of doing it really from the inception of the Royal Air Force itself, but even maybe before then. When flying displays would take place to capture the imagination of the population. And the Air Force have traditionally been doing it for many years. People will remember RAF Waddington, RAF Lucas air shows. Scampton had a brief go at it for a little while. But even other stations would have families days and flying days and things like that. At Cosford, you can go all the way back to 1938, 39, really. The war's just about to begin. We've just started training apprentices, yet they still somehow found the time to have air days where they could invite the families of the apprentices down to see what was happening. And there's an actual program out there that shows one of the very early air shows, and believe it or not, they would purposefully crash an aircraft just to show how they would normally react to an aircraft crash on an airfield. We won't be doing that this year.
Yeah.
Our emergency service colleagues will not be impressed.
No, but to go back to the original question, we've been doing an air show or having an air day. I think it was called a Battle of Britain Day. It was called an RAF at Home Day, and it went through various iterations. The latest one being a full-on air show. And of course, as other stations have shut down or maybe aren't able to put on air shows anymore, you get to 2022, where you find Cosford as the last RAF organised air show anywhere, which makes it a very important part of the calendar.
How many people are we expecting to come to Cosford?
50,000 plus. We have got people coming from abroad. Looking at the latest stats on ticket sales, so we have guests coming from Australia, New Zealand, America, as well as many countries in Europe. So we're looking forward to welcoming them on the day. It's worth mentioning that in the theme of the 80th anniversary of the RAF Regiment, we're of course celebrating Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee, and we will have a vintage village which reflects all the way from the 1940s up to today. And we are also commemorating the 40th anniversary of the Falklands conflict, and we have a very exciting display with Bravo November Chinook now in place in the museum. We've got a couple of other aircraft which we are confirming at the moment, not quite 100% sure yet.
Can't say anything just yet.
Okay, some surprises up the sleeves.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really just actually getting them into place and being able to demo it. So yeah, so we've got a good exciting display for our guests to come and have a really good day out with us. So
you describe the audience as guests.
Yeah, they're guests of the Royal Air Force, aren't they?
Of course they are.
They're our visitors. They're our guests, and the station. It's a full working event for RAF Cosford, but not just Cosford. We have many other stations that dip into support, notably Shawbury, notably some for Chris. He's got some photographers coming from around the Royal Air Force. Tactical Supply Wing for the fueling of the aircraft. Bryce Norton, absolutely, for hosting some of our foreign aircraft, because of course only certain aircraft can land at Cosford Airfield. It's not big enough to put down many of the fighter jets that we've got coming along.
Maybe this is a good time to ask you about the purpose of Cosford and why Cosford is here, and why is it such an important station to the Air Force. And Tony, being a training officer, that's your day job, because the air show is kind of like a side thing for you, but probably taking up all your time.
It is this year.
What is the role of RAF Cosford?
Cosford primarily is obviously the home of air engineering for the Royal Air Force. We do have the School of Photography, number 1 radio school, and the School of PT on Cosford site as well. But the Commandant is also Commandant DSAE Defence School of Aeronautical Engineering, which covers School of Army Aviation Engineering at Lyneham and the Royal Navy School of Air Engineering down at Gosport. So the Commandant has a broad reach, not just as station commander, but actually is owning all air engineering training across defence. And as we said, I work across all 3 sites because I am in the training design and support organisation, where we design the training that the Training Requirements Authority within Defence wants. We give it to the schools to deliver. We assure it, assess it and assure it. It's a continual movement of training activity, courses changing, technologies changing, new aircraft types coming in and the like, and we just have to adapt to that as it goes along.
So roughly how many aviators under training do you have at Cosford at any one time?
It's going to be somewhere over 1,000 at any one time, easily over 1,000.
So do they get the day off for Cosford Air Show?
If the day off includes getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and working till about 8 or 9 o'clock that night, then yes, absolutely, they have the day off to work on the airfield.
Okay, yeah, it's all hands on deck, isn't it, for the air show? Everybody,
particularly everybody in uniform, has a job, but it also touches upon the civil servants and the contractors that we work with as well. And for many of us, it starts to take up a lot of our life in the months and weeks leading up to it. And for those that it doesn't quite have that effect on day-to-day leading up to it, it certainly has an impact in that last week and on the day itself. And, of course, the day or two after when aircraft are departing and, trying to do a FOD plod, walking in long lines across the airfield to pick up any things that our guests may have left behind that would not be conducive to aircraft flying.
That is one of my fondest memories of serving at Cosford, is the 7 a.m. FOD plod day after air show.
Yeah, you had a 16, 17, maybe even 18-hour day on the Sunday, and Monday morning, 7 o'clock, get in a line, walk across the airfield and get it ready.
But to be fair, I remember walking across the airfield, picking up bits and pieces, and every rank was there from AC through to station commander.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that reflects well. The air cadets, you see a lot of air cadets at the show. How involved are the air cadets this year?
So we do have a large air cadet presence, usually, mainly because obviously this is the only RAF air show, so they do want to get involved. And we have the HQ of West Midlands and Wales air cadets here at Cosford as well, with Group Captain Roger Simon. So the air cadets have their own air cadet village in effect, and this year in particular they've got a lot of STEM and technology, and we've got a really good relationship from a training point of view with the innovations that they have as well.
Yeah, so the airshow team actually have so as well as the general public who come along, the airshow team put on lots of different things for other people to attend as well, and one of which is their special dispensations for cadet squadrons. So if they turn up in a minibus, they only pay a certain amount. If they turn up in a coach, they only pay a certain amount. So the actual air cadets are brought on, I wouldn't say free, but certainly at a very, very cheap rate, and they come on en masse. So yes, you'll see not only us in our uniforms walking around on airshow day, you'll see, I would say, hundreds, if not thousands of cadets wandering around as well. But it's interesting because I'm an ex-air cadet. And when I joined the Air Cadets a long time ago, there were certain things you did and it was great fun, and that led to an Air Force career for me. But, we held an event last year that actually Tony organised, which was a cadet muster for their anniversary. And when they turned up with all the STEM kit that they use nowadays as a way of engaging with young people to join the cadets, that some of the flight simulators they had were just phenomenal. So the other thing is, if you come to the air show, you're going to get to see what the cadets do nowadays as well. So if you're particularly young, there's a chance that you're going to meet some cadets, and it's something you might want to take up when you go away from there.
Now, with an air show like this, there's an awful lot of aviation fuel being used. Who pays for that?
Self-sustaining.
Okay.
So we don't dip into the public purse or anything. So, what you see on display, and Martin furiously working in the background to try and pay for various displays at various different levels, and then the fuel costs that are associated with that and everything, that comes from whichever money was made in previous air shows has been set aside and husbanded very well by previous committees and things like that. And next year, whatever we're able to do in 2023 will be directly associated with what we do in the next 8 weeks.
So ticket sales and sponsorship effectively pay for the air show.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
So, through corporate sponsorship, through STEM, or through those organisations that have taken up into the Station Commander Chalet, and it's with the whole aim of them having a really good day out as well and enjoying themselves and showing off what they have. So larger companies like BAE and Rolls-Royce, who we generally have a relationship with anyway, and they're always engaged with the air show, and they're coming along this year, certainly from the STEM side of it. In fact, we've got a lot of STEM this year. 3 hangars worth of STEM this year, which is more than we usually had, to really push that aspect of the air show.
Yeah, STEM.
Science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I think everyone knows what STEM is, but it's worth just reiterating. So the fuel is paid for. It must cost a lot of money to run the show, but you also sell in exhibition space or stand space. There's a bit of a market area. I guess if you're clever, you won't break even. I guess if you're clever, you're going to be making a profit. But where does that profit go? Is it a decent party at the mess that evening? Or what happens to the profit from the air show?
The profit, when is made, we'll be honest, there have been years of the airshow where quite a bit of money's been made for whatever reason, and there's been other years where actually they've just about broken even, depending on the lay of the land out there on a given year. And the money sits there until all the bills are paid and everything's totted up. The accounts are all done, and at the end of it, they say, right, okay, that is, and the money's set aside for next year, ready to go. That's the money that we've made that we can now distribute amongst RAF charities, and that's what happens to it. So you look at the 4 main RAF charities, the Charitable Trust, Benevolent Fund, Royal Air Force Association,
and
the museum, and the money's divided between them.
And is there any money that's retained for RAF Cosford to distribute to its favourite charities locally?
Yes, some money does stay on the station. There's a percentage that stays on the station, and actually it's used for local good causes as well. We have helped out local organisations through that fund, but it also helps out with things that happen on the station. So if you think for something like the station bonfire we've always traditionally held, a lot of the money that allows us to put that on comes from what we do with the air show, but the knock-on effect of that is the bonfire isn't just for service families. We invite local schools with pupils who've got additional needs, youth organisations, and other local families, as well as our own. So the air show has this massive ripple effect across the local community in terms of things it can do because of the money it generates.
So RAF Cosford is located in the West Midlands. It's about 20 minutes drive from Wolverhampton, about an hour's drive from the centre of Birmingham. Now, Chris, you as in your role as Media Communications Officer for Cosford, you must be quite well connected locally.
That's what I tell people.
That's what you tell people. That's what you tell your boss. And what is the feedback you get from Mayor of Wolverhampton, people in Shropshire, the people that are, let's say, affected positively and negatively?
It's interesting because I speak to people, as you say, on a fairly regular basis. The people you think would be affected most by it, which is the local village of Albrighton, because we sit right within their area, that and Donington Parish Council, they're the people that I meet most regularly, and actually they're the people I see have the most pride that they have this on their doorstep, that they have this long-standing connection with the Royal Air Force. It's their base. And isn't it really cool that their base is the last base that puts on an air show? So, part of our job as a team putting the air show together is to make sure that we engage meaningfully on a regular basis. And that's my job as a media and comms officer, obviously, about everything that the station is doing that might impact on local life. And the air show is one element of that. So, for instance, myself and Tony, particularly with some other members, will be sat probably in this room in a week's time, or in a couple of weeks' time, meeting local parish councillors to allow them to represent people from the local area to say, okay, so we're going to outline what our plans are this year. These are the issues we've learnt maybe from previous years, and this is what the plans we're implementing. What questions have you got for us? Is there anything you want to take back to, the people that live in the local villages? So that open and frank dialogue actually means that when there is an issue, if there ever is an issue with, say, traffic or something like that, they're aware of it, and it is dealt with positively.
Okay. Now at the end.
Sorry, I was going to say with the the local community and their businesses as well. Just to give you for example, we have to accommodate the aircrew obviously whilst they're here for the weekend. And I can tell you that in the space of 3 days, the amount of hotel rooms reduced that we were originally offered from 250 to 150. So they'd sold 100 hotel rooms in literally 3 days. So people, because we're a one-day show, it's a weekend in the region for most people. They'll perhaps come up early and visit places like the Ironbridge Gorge museums, the hospitality, the restaurants, the pubs and bars. There's so much in the local community for the business community, shall I say. So they do very well out of it as well as indirectly from the air show, I would imagine.
I guess they might even visit David Austin Roses at the end of the runway.
We would hope so.
The day before maybe, but not on the day certainly, because David Austin Roses, they're an international business, and actually they partner with us. They've been so good. We go in and speak to them, and they've agreed that they close for the day.
So I have to clear about 60 houses within the display area because of CAA and MAA rules.
You have to clear them. What does that mean?
It means ask them to leave their homes because they're right underneath the display area, and we're not allowed to. And Shoreham sadly changed many rules, but actually now we invite them onto the units, give them a ticket to come and see the show themselves. They're our closest neighbours. Some of the ones we inconvenience in the local area, we invite them on as well, just as a thank you and sorry for the inconvenience. And that includes certain businesses in the local area, David Austin Roses or Brighton Garden Centre being two of the main ones that we have to ask if they'd be good enough to close. And they've been exceptionally supportive of us again this year, knowing where we are after all coming out of COVID. So couldn't be happier, couldn't be more thankful.
Finally then, what's the future looking like for the Cosford Air Show? Is this still going to be here in 5-10 years? And what sort of aircraft are we going to have in 2040 if we're going to go down the Jet 40 road? What are your thoughts for the future?
I think from a purely Cosford point of view, as long as the appetite is still there to put the air show on, then Cosford's got a long-term future within the Royal Air Force. It's a station that's not going anywhere, and given that Cosford has been so successful over so many years, I wouldn't see it going away. I think people want to come to it. I hosted an aircraft photo shoot yesterday. A lot of aviation enthusiasts, and they were all raving about the work that Martin and he's been doing to the lineup. They said is incredible for this year. So I don't see it going anywhere. And obviously, Martin, as long as he's here and whoever takes over from him and us in the future, we'll be working year in, year out to make it exciting and interesting. And yeah, I guess we might see more electric aircraft on the flying display in the future.
That would be amazing to see.
Whilst we get amazing support from the senior leadership team to push this forward, whilst they want us to run an air show, hopefully we can run an air show. And I think that's what it is, because we want to run an air show. We want to get the general public in. It's kind of become a bit of an annual event for Cosford. And whilst there is that appetite for it, then we'll run an air show.
It's the Royal Air Force's last air show, so it would be easy to think that means that every single aircraft that's in our inventory is going to pitch up on the day, and that's obviously just not the case, is it? We're a busy Royal Air Force. We're a global Royal Air Force. We've got aircraft everywhere on various taskings, and all the things we'd like to see, they've got day jobs too, like us. So those aircraft and those aircrew are out doing other things, and whilst we'd like to see them in Shropshire on the 12th of June, they may well be elsewhere.
I think the other thing as well, it's not just us. Civilian air shows, excuse me, have also sort of wound down quite a bit. So there are fewer and fewer air shows every year, and I know Chris gets far more than emails and letters and things than I ever do. But I even get there's one chap in particular who is an NHS doctor, and he's been working on COVID wards and all the rest of it for the last 2 years. But he is absolutely, he just cannot wait to come to Cosford and see a military air show. And he keeps suggesting to me, sort of foreign teams that I should be looking at, and all the rest of it. But he could do my job, stood on his head, I'm sure, as well as his day job as a doctor. But I think because there are fewer and fewer every year, this is not only the last RAF air show, so that's special, but it would be a shame, to see Cosford go, because it would just be another air show that.
I think it's a real jewel in the calendar. It really, really is, because there are some air shows out there that really do cater for the aviation enthusiast. They know everything about aircraft. They really, really do, and their knowledge is to be applauded. But actually, what we try and achieve here at Cosford is that the one family member might be the aviation enthusiast. They might be pulling the rest of the family along with them, who have got nothing really to think about with aircraft. They're not really interested, but there's still lots for them to see. There's still lots for the children to get involved with on the ground. Yeah. And I think if Cosford were ever to not exist, I think that'd be a massive, massive gap on the airshow circuit. It really, really would.
Do you know what? One thing that I've seen about Cosford and I have visited Cosford Air Show since I was stationed here many years ago, is that if you drive to the air show, you can drive your car onto the airfield, unpack your picnic. I remember seeing people with roof racks with chairs on and all kinds of stuff. It's a drive-in air show.
Yeah. It is really, really unique. It really is in a world of its own, and long may it remain.
I think the public as well this year are going to be, when the final lineup is sorted, they're going to be in for a really good good show.
Yeah, because we haven't finished announcing yet.
Yeah. So
We've announced some really great stuff. Martin's really been working hard, and every time he sends me another email, I'm like, whoa, what have you done now?
Yeah.
I have to send him an email, mate, this is amazing. But
and already the feedback on social media is very
very good. Yeah, you know,
very
we
positive.
pulled it out the
People
bag
are
this
really
year.
excited about
But
it.
I know that he's working on other stuff.
Yeah.
So all I'd say is, if you haven't got your ticket, you better think about it fairly soon, because there's going to come a moment fairly soon where we say, actually, you know what, we've sold out, and then Martin's going to announce something really big, and we were like, well, you kind of missed the boat on that one.
So on that point, there'll be some people listening to this after the air show's taken place. Where should they go? You know, let's say it's middle of November and someone's listening to this. How do they find a ticket for the Cosford Air Show?
Oh, you know what? www.cosfordairshow.co.uk.
Yeah,
and ironically, if you're listening to this in November, we're already planning 2023.
Well, Chris, Tony, Martin, it's been great to have you on Inside Air. And thank you for the team, the wider team, for organising the air show. And I hope I get to come along and see it for myself.
We've got some jobs need filling. You're welcome.
Thanks, Chris.
Corporal Matty Matthews, thank you for joining us on Inside Air to talk about photography, in particular photography at an air show. You are a photographer with the Royal Air Force, possibly the best job in the Royal Air Force, would you say?
It's not even a question, really, is it? It is the best job in the Royal Air Force. So no trade quite beats it. We cover all, I mean, we get to cover every other trade, work with every other trade. So, I mean, there is nothing better.
Now, you and I, we've worked together over the years. You've been in the Air Force, I think it's 14 years now. You've deployed all over the world. Your photographs have been on the front pages of newspapers nationally. You're a multi-award winning photographer at the RAF Photographic Competition. And you're also a pretty humble guy. I know you wouldn't have told me all that if if I'd asked you. So we're talking air show today. You've got 10 tips for anyone that's visiting an air show.
Yep.
Do you want to just reel through those? Tell us what your recommendations are.
So first one, easy, is it's a bit of an inside joke with myself and another photographer, but first one's prop blur, or your shutter speed, essentially. When you're working with aircraft, you work your camera around your shutter speed. So for things like Hercules aircraft or prop-driven aircraft, you never go above 100th of a second. Yeah, even with jets, you've got a little bit of leeway, so you can speed your shutter speed up a little bit. But that's not to say that you should, because if you keep your shutter speed nice and low, you get a lovely pan-in blur in the background, and it just looks so much more dynamic, and it's a lot better, the images, basically. So work around your shutter speed. Go for your safe shots if you want, but just risk it. Have a go at going really low, like a 50th of a second, a 40th of a second. You know, it's an air show. The aircraft aren't going to just do one pass and then go. They're going to keep coming back and forth and back and forth. So you've got so many opportunities. And that leads me on to point 2, which should be panning. As much as shutter speed is important, so is panning, and so is keeping your body still, following your aircraft. Plant the trunk of your body, plant your 2 feet, focus on your target and just follow it through. Keep your finger on the shutter all the way through the motion until the aircraft leaves your sight, and then you can relax. A big thing about that is practicing. The more you practice, the more you pan, the better you'll be, basically. Point 3 is waiting for a bank, a turn, something dynamic. Obviously, everyone takes thousands and thousands of images, especially spotters at air shows. Side on aircraft, nice and level, going along the screen. It's nice, but it's pretty boring after a while. Wait for it to turn, wait for it to bank, wait for it to put its undercarriage down. Obviously, you've got a little bit more dynamic activity with air show teams and aircraft that produce smoke, so that's your dynamicness there, basically. But with single jets like our display Typhoon, you're not going to get smoke. So your best thing to do is wait for it to chuck the undercarriage down, to start turning, to start banking, to start going inverted, shooting up, stuff like that. And obviously reheat. Anytime they reheat, you get the lovely carrots at the back end of the nozzle. So yeah, I'd almost say don't shoot when they're straight and level, just let them go. Point 4 would be check the sun. So shoot with the sun behind you. I know when you're at air shows, sometimes you're a bit limited because obviously you are in a certain area, you can't go the other side of the runway, so you are limited, but it's not to say you can't work with it. At the same time, I'm not saying don't shoot with the sun in front of you, because you can get some lovely silhouette shots, some nice starburst shots, but that's not going to be your main shot. You want to fight. You don't want to fight the sun. You want to work with the sun when you're getting your images. Point 5 would be your continuous high and your focus setting. So when you're shooting aircraft, especially aerobatic teams, everything happens in a split second. You'll have nothing for a bit and then everything happens. So keep your finger on your continuous high. Yeah, you're going to take 100 images in 10 seconds, but you can wade through them later, get rid of the 90 that you don't want, and the 10 where you get that perfect pass is just what you need, which is coupled with your focus. You need your focus on AI servo. You need to be on continuous focus. You can't do a single point focus because aircraft move that fast. Your single point of focus will change as soon as it's left the screen. Point 6 is your lenses. You're not going to shoot wide. You're not going to shoot standard lenses unless obviously you're going to do static work, which is fine. But for flying aircraft, you want long lenses. You want to really compress your image. Obviously we use like 200 to 400 Canon lenses with a 1.4 converter, which works out at, I don't know, like 720mm, which is pretty good, to be fair. Or the 100 to 400mm lens we have as well. But we also have fixed lenses, and I'd almost argue that fixed lenses are better, because with a fixed lens, like my 600mm fixed lens, I don't have to worry about zooming because I have to just shoot at 600mm. It's one less thing to worry about because you are forced to do that. So I'd almost argue that use a fixed lens because it's one less thing to worry about, and you're forced to try and work with the lens, and you'll find that you'll take better pictures by doing that, to be honest with you. Point 7 would be research. Do a bit of research before the show, see what aircraft are flying, maybe even look at what shows they've been doing in the past. So like the Typhoon display team and the Red Arrows, they always follow a set routine. You'd be able to figure out roughly where they're going to be, roughly where they're going to fly, and it gives you that extra bit of just help with the images. It's also just good to research about the aircraft, the history of them. A lot of aircraft that visit, the foreign ones especially, they have so much history steeped behind their paint schemes. Just a bit of research, it not only helps you with your photography, it's just interesting as well. Aircraft are amazing things at the end of the day. From research, you got like point 8, which is a recce. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to do with air shows to do a recce, but obviously in the military we love a good recce. Nothing beats a recce. There's no reason, especially with Cosford, that you can't go visit the museum, for example, at Cosford, and then have a look around, see what the layout is. You know roughly where you're going to be, so you can figure out roughly where the sun's going to be, roughly where the aircraft are going to be. And obviously any excuse to go to the museum there is free and it's awesome. Point 9 is don't shoot safe. I always say get close and then get closer. Obviously you're going to get a couple of safe shots in the bag, but don't be afraid to crop right into your image and shoot really close to like the cockpit or like extremities of the aircraft. So the engines, just take some images of the engines because they're just, or for like Typhoons, the nozzles, just focus on the nozzles and to get the reheat going because it just looks really awesome. It looks dynamic, it looks nice. Don't always shoot with the whole aircraft in the picture. It just, everyone shoots that picture at the end of the day. Not saying that the images won't be nice and it won't be memorable, but just push yourself, just try and do something different with your images basically. And then just finally point 10 would just be just taking the spectacle. You're there to photograph it, but enjoy it as well. Enjoy the moment. Take your images. At the end of the day, your images are your memories of that. So being able to record that for you to be able to take home and say, oh look, I got to see this jet, I got to see this aircraft, I got to see the Battle of Britain Memorial flying. Look at these images, and you can always go back to an image. It's not like something that just fades away. You can always go back to an image. I'm a spotter, and I take my kids with me all the time, so they love the jets, and I got loads of images of my little ones, especially my little boy Phoenix. He has pictures of him with C-17s and the A400s. He knows, he's 2 years old, he's just turned 3 actually, and he knows the names of all the aircraft at Bryce, and that's my memory of aircraft. It's with me and the kids, and that goes back to my days when I first went to Cosford and the air show circuit, which was with my granddad, who's since passed on, but I've got images of the aircraft that I've watched with him. So don't be scared to not necessarily put down your camera, because I enjoy the air show through a viewfinder as well, but make sure you take it in.
So take pictures of the people around you.
Yeah, take pictures of the people around you, your family, your friends. It's all part of just one big experience.
And that's something that you can do with a smartphone, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can do it with any phone. So
one last thing before you go, how can people see and enjoy all the amazing photographs that you and your colleagues create?
So you can search for us on Facebook just by searching RAF Photographers. You can @RAF Photographer Twitter, and Instagram is @RAF Photographers.
That's brilliant. Corporal Matty, maybe we'll see you in the crowd. In fact, if you know what Corporal Matty looks like, follow him because he always knows the best places to go. Thanks very much, Matty.
No problem.
I'm SAC Victoria Andrews, and this is Reheat on Inside Air. 2 RAF Typhoons from RAF Lossiemouth have conducted air combat training alongside British Army Wildcat helicopters in Lithuania as part of a wider NATO mission. Playing the role of hostile aircraft, the Typhoons conducted a series of simulated attacks on the helicopters. This allowed the pilots to practice attacks against low and slow-flying targets, while the Wildcat pilots practiced evading an attack from fighter jets. Radar operators are seeing the benefit of a £1.5 billion investment known as the Marshall Programme, which is upgrading air traffic management across the UK Armed Forces. Operators from RAF Waddington have relocated to a new specialist hub with cutting-edge technology at RAF Coningsby. The move allows approach control room radar operatives from multiple units to carry out their roles safely and effectively at an alternative location in one centralised terminal air traffic control centre. RAF regiment gunners in Alaska on Exercise Red Flag have been using their ability to fast rope to simulate the extraction of pilots shot down behind enemy lines. Equipped with heat-resistant gloves, personnel from 15 Squadron fast roped from a hovering 210th Pave Hawk helicopter. Once on the ground, the gunners simulated the extraction of an injured pilot, providing urgent medical treatment to the casualty before being hoisted into the helicopter. And finally, RAF weightlifters have been in competition at the first event of the year in Yorkshire. The men and ladies teams raked in a string of PBs, but it was Corporal Luke Mees who was an award winner on the day, making an impressive 5 out of 6 lifts. Corporal Mees said how amazing it was to see how much the team had progressed. I look forward to the rest of the season and watching the team grow. That's Reheat on Inside Air.
I'm SAC Simon Ross with this episode's Name That Noise. That was the sound of an air transportable isolator, or ATI, being switched on. An ATI is typically used for transporting a patient with a highly infectious disease such as Ebola or other viral hemorrhagic fever. It looks like a large wheeled stretcher with a metal frame and is covered with a plastic envelope for the patient to lay inside. After the batteries switch on, the machine starts negative pressure to ensure a safe environment is maintained within it during transport. Clinical access consists of a half suit on either side of the ATI. The ATI is a jointly owned asset between the RAF and the Department of Health. It sits at the Tactical Medical Wing on a 24-hour readiness to fly anywhere in the world on a C-17 or an A400M. The RAF Deployable Air Isolator Team consists of 15 medical personnel, 1 medical support officer and technicians who can fix the ATI if required during a flight.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.